to welcome anyone viewing on Facebook and anyone watching the replay. And I would like to welcome you, Christopher. Thank you for joining me today for this discussion in the sacred time and place. And I'm excited to ask you all the questions I have about your experience, about your Vipassana retreat. So for anyone who's watching, our guest today is Christopher Pena. Chris is a wellness practitioner, a meditation teacher, a retreat facilitator, and just universal brother and friend to all. So thank you for joining, Christopher.
First, thanks, Rachel, and your plant ceremony community for allowing me the space. It's, medicines come in all sorts of varieties, and I really appreciate you taking the time to learn more about what I just experienced in the new but old type of healing modality.
Yeah, very old. So on that note, let's get started with what is Vipassana?
So the Vipassana meditation was and is the meditation of the Buddha. It was his contribution to the modern world about 2,500 years ago. And some of the best qualities of the practice is that it's universal. Anybody can practice it. It's just a matter of taking the time and discovering the stillness within. The Buddha is known for sitting under the Bodhi tree and figuring out all the worldly issues there. Like, what was he doing? And that's what we learned throughout the 10 days of silence. We were learning about the observation of our breath, learning about the observation of the sensations that occur within our bodies from head to toe. And we're also learning about our samsaras, any of the miseries and the troubles that we're holding on to, which could be manifesting in some of these sensations that we were having.
So it's a 10-day silent retreat. So you take a vow of silence?
Yes. For the 10 days, we lived the lifestyle of a monk. The vow of silence began on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. and it ended on day 10 at about 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., where afterwards we could talk to the fellow participants to help us land back home before heading out into the real world. And, part of that vow, we needed to make commitments to ourselves. The vow of silence, there would be non-harm, non-violence. There'd be no stealing of any kind. There was to be, for old students, there was to be no eating after 5 p.m. and the use of non-luxurious beds. So old students go back and get to sleep on planks. As a new student, I only had to observe a few of those. To give you, something to look forward to on the next one.
Oh, speaking of beds, what were the accommodations like?
So given that it's pretty interesting because yes, we are in COVID, and the facility that I was at in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, paid respect to everything going on in the world today with all the COVID restrictions. So in a way, we almost got more isolated. But typically at this facility, most of the rooms were single rooms. So one bed, and we had our own bathroom. So we spent a lot of our downtimes by ourselves in those rooms. And there was a kitchen along with the meditation hall and the pagoda, which was there for deeper meditation. Inside the kitchen, we were assigned places to eat, and we were to sit there for the duration of all our meals, which occurred a meal in the morning at 6:30, a meal at 11 a.m., and then tea at 5.
No dinner. No dinner.
No dinner. New students could have a piece of fruit at 5 o'clock. And I did not catch on that I was allowed to have fruit at 5 o'clock until like day 9 or day 8. So before then, I was living to the vows of no eating. I thought that's what it was. And inside the mess hall, the kitchen, we were served our food. While we were operating throughout the day, we were not to acknowledge anybody, from the teacher down to the servers and each other inside of the facility. We were to look down, gaze down if we were to walk by somebody. No gestures, no, hey, go ahead of me in front of the door. But we would find that we would stop, and you could sense this respect because people would stop well in advance to have someone go in front of them. So there was these little micro conversations happening. But who was it? I don't know.
Within the interactions. So tell me, what was the day-to-day like the agenda from morning until the time you went to bed?
So we were awoken at 4 a.m. by the sound of a gong, the sound of a bell. And that was the bell which guided us from 4 a.m. till 9:30 p.m. at night. From 4 to 4:30, it was our grand rising. So you'd get ready for the day. You could then meditate in your room from 4:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m., or you could choose to go to the meditation hall from 4:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. And this was for the first 6 days, and then we were offered a pagoda cell, which we could then go there during this time. So we had 3 different places we could choose to meditate from. So 4:30 to 6:30, open sits, choose where you want to go. 6:30 a.m. till 8 a.m. was our breakfast and rest. 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. was our group sitting. So everybody in the facility would either be in the pagoda, but if you were a part of the retreat going on, you'd be in the meditation hall. Teachers, servers, students, from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., doing the Vipassana meditation with strong determination. So we were not supposed to move for that hour. We can go more in on that later. From then 9 o'clock to about 9:20, we were given instruction by our teacher, Goenka. And then we were able to, from there, stay in the meditation hall or go to our rooms to meditate until 11. At 11, we'd have lunch. We'd then have rest until 1. From 1 from 1 o'clock till 2:30, we had open sits. So bedroom, meditation hall, pagoda. From 2:30 to 3:30, we had another group sitting of strong determination. From 3:30 to 5, back to our own private sits, which we'd also get direction from Goenka after this. From 5 to 6, we had our tea break and rest. From 6 to 7, another hour of strong determination, sitting, doing the Vipassana practice. From 7 p.m. to 8:30, we had discourse, which was a video of Goenka talking about everything we just did the day before, or the day leading up to it. He would give all the scientific reasons, because this meditation is based in science. That is one of the biggest takeaways from Vipassana, is it's based in science. It's not based in dogma. It's not based in reaching out for a master outside of yourself. Yes, we had a master teaching us, but he said the moment you leave, you're your own master. So everything was taught from the molecular level. And these discourses helped to encourage that and reinforce it. After the discourse at 8:30, we would have a 30-minute meditation as a group, and then it would be lights out.
So hours and hours of meditation every day.
Yes.
So what is the Vipassana practice itself? What's the meditation?
So the best way to start would be to get into getting ready for the meditation. When you arrive at the retreat center, you're thinking, oh, Vipassana meditation, oh, we're going to start right away. And we did not start learning the technique until day number 4. So for the first 3 days that I was there, and the group of us was there, it was to focus on our breath. But focus in an objective, observational way. To notice you're inhaling through your nose and to notice it going out. That's where we started for the first day. Day 1, just watching your breath for 10 hours a day. Later on in the day in day 1, Goenka would be like, would suggest, hey, maybe you notice sensations around your nose. Maybe you notice sensations at the top of your lips. So by the end of day 1, heading into day 2, we were focusing on this triangular area of our breath. Heading into day 2, now I just did 10 days of this. Now heading into day 2, it's more of the same. So when we go into these sits of strong determination, we're sitting there just concentrating on this singular area. And oh my, like the pains you begin to feel, the sensations you begin to feel, everything from good and bad happens. But you're tasked to sit there in equanimity, to sit there in balance, trying to not judge, trying to not talk with or about what you're feeling. By the end of day 2, this triangle has now narrowed to just your 2 nostrils down to the top of your lip. Heading into day 3, now you're doing 20 hours, heading into day 3, heading into another 10 hours. So 30 hours of this nose breathing. I began to feel life itself there. I began to feel, you know, when you're in the cold and like your nose is dry, I could feel that in a room that was 70 degrees, full of 50 people meditating. It felt cold, or it felt warm, or it felt moist. I could feel tingles. I remember meditating on day 3 for probably 4 hours with this one singular nose hair, because I could feel it dancing back and forth. Because if you think of an arrow or a funnel, my awareness was being funneled from this grandness down to a fine point where that's all that was there. And these are sensations that are going on every single moment of every single day. Goenka would express the unconscious is not really unconscious. It's feeling all these sensations. We're just not awake to understanding that we can feel it all. So by the end of day 3, I had the worst headache of my life. The back of my head was throbbing, and I couldn't pay any attention to it. And I'm just focusing on my breath here. And my head is pounding. And for those of you who are unaware that may be watching, I have a spinal fusion. So my lower back is fused into one bone, and that was hurting. So I'm carrying these 2 different pains, but my mind's just like staying right here.
So how do you, I mean, I imagine that it's quite difficult to focus the attention on just one narrow part of the body for so long. What happens when your mind does drift?
So when my mind did drift, it went to first things I wasn't 100% confident with myself. That voice that can follow us where it's like, I don't feel heard, or I don't feel valued, or nobody loves me, or you're not this, you're that, you're doing this, you're doing that. It was all coming up. It was all coming to surface. Any of the traumas that I've endured, or unfortunately may have projected onto others, came to the surface. I remember after day 2, going into my bedroom and wanting to leave. I was having a breakdown. I was breaking down because all the things that I wasn't okay with in my life was bubbling up. And I did not know what to do with it because I just had to breathe. So if my mind went elsewhere, that was okay. Goenka would say, he would say, you could be focusing on your breath, but the next thing you know, you have gone 5 minutes on another topic.
Okay, so there's leeway for that.
He would then express and say, can you find the hurdles which got you there? I can't remember anything specifically, but say if I started thinking about water, and now I'm at waterfalls in Costa Rica. He said, could you track that? And if you could track it, can you then get back to your breath?
So it's kind of like a formula for coming back to your breath while also excavating any pathway that leads away from that focus.
And
understanding it.
Exactly. And like any great teacher, he let us experience it before offering us something.
So tell us more about your teacher. Who is he?
So I must preface that I did not really know what I was getting myself into when I signed up for the course. Most things like this, it's just a part of my hero's journey, and I act on these feelings. Like I got into a meditation course, and now here this arrives. need to do a retreat. So I sign up for the Dharmadhara Vipassana Retreat Center in Shelburne Falls, which was opened up by and helped facilitate the open up by this master, Goenka. And who Goenka is he is a man who grew up in a very wealthy, business, successful family in Burma. He began to undergo migraines, severe migraines, to the point where he got addicted to morphine because the medicine, like doctors all throughout the world, could not help him. So they just give him the morphine, give him the morphine. But then the doctor's like, well, we have to get you off the morphine. He was suggested to go visit this teacher in Burma who held the sanctity of the Vipassana practice. This practice had been lost since the Buddha. And countries like India, like Japan, Thailand, where Buddhism is prevalent, they lost the sacredness of the practice. Except in Burma, where they kept it quiet and kept the sacredness there. They didn't try to add anything to it. They kept it in its raw form. Goenka learned about this teaching from a friend, so he headed back to Burma. He found the teacher, and the teacher told him that I would suggest that you sit and observe your breath, and then we'll begin observing the sensations of your body. And he denied it. He denied it. It's like, how is this going to help me? All these doctors said this and this. How's this going to help me? So then he left. Nothing was getting better. So he went back to Burma. He decided to learn the teaching. He learned the teaching, and now this practice is only in Burma. His parents were living in India. His mom knew, like his mom had issues going on, and he knew that this practice could help her. He just helped cure a somatic issue. His migraines went away because of his dedication to sitting. He did his own retreat, and then he continued doing the practice an hour in the morning and an hour at night. He got permission from his teacher to bring the practice to India. And his teacher's dream in life was to bring the practice back to India. So here Goenka was, after this practice had been quieted down for 2,500 years, it was said that at that 2,500 year mark, the practice would be reemerging and would be spread throughout the entire world. And there Goenka was saying, why does this have to be me? Why couldn't it have been year 2400? Why does it have to be 2501? So like any great story, he gets permission and a special passport to make it over to India, because it wasn't easy to get to India at the time, but for him, they made it happen. Gets to India, begins his first retreat there, and starts teaching his mother, and 10 other people began to show up. So he was only supposed to be teaching her, but then others showed up. He did that first teaching, and then it spread like wildfire. Shortly after, Ram Dass, Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg, a lot of these great spiritual leaders in the world today took these first initial practices from him when it was opened up. So he opens up in India. The next thing you know, hundreds, thousands, are showing up to learn from this man, this Vipassana retreat, this Vipassana meditation. And then he then expanded to Europe, then expanded to all throughout Asia, but they kept the sanctity of the practice, and he knew it was up to him to then spread it everywhere. So this was in 1972, 1969, 1972, that this occurred. In 1982 was when they opened up the very first Vipassana retreat center in the United States, which was the location I practice at in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. So it just exploded. And this man kept to the sacredness of the practice. He didn't try to lose it. He wanted to keep to it because it was his teacher's wish. To now, like Goenka died in 2013, but they're using his videos and recordings from a seminar in 1991 that is doing all the teachings. And they have service centers throughout the entire world that offer these 10-day silent retreats. After that, you can go in and do a weekend retreat, 30-day, 45-day, 60-day sits. But yeah, he was a shepherd, and he kept true to the Buddha and kept true to the practice, and is now helping heal millions.
Wow, well, that is quite a call to hear the assignment to carry on a 2,500-year-old tradition that had been not lost, but buried somehow. So thank you for sharing that origin story of how it even came here to New England and to this Western culture. Can't help but notice you mentioned that he started spreading it in 1969, 1972. There seems to have been a huge revival of sacred practices around that time, and he's a part of it. So thank you for sharing that. And so for you personally, why Vipassana?
For me personally, once undergoing the meditation, so I guess this would be a great place to talk about the Vipassana meditation. It's called, like, he expressed it, the art of living or the art of dying. And there are three basic truths that we work, there's three trainings that we work off of. Sila, which is morality. Samadhi, which is concentration and the mastery of the mind. And Pena, which is wisdom, and it's the insights that purify the mind. When I began listening to myself and feeling what I was undergoing while I listened to myself, I truly discovered, and like we talk about the sacred gap often.
Mm-hmm.
This was another entrance into the sacred gap.
Or pause.
Yes.
So just as to remind anyone watching, when we speak about that sacred gap or the sacred pause, it's that space that we take for ourselves to withdraw from the chaos, withdraw from the trigger or interaction, whatever the situation is that might be causing internal turmoil or tension or discord, and taking a moment to settle, cultivate inner peace, and choose as opposed to being at the effect of that trigger or situation, giving ourselves that chance to choose how to respond and how to direct our energy going forward. So we have that time to, it's really empowering, that time to empower ourselves with choice, so that we are no longer at the effects of patterns from our past or the stories that we tell ourselves that are usually not true, and to choose from that empowered place of peace. And so, yeah, that sacred gap, that sacred pause is really, yeah, just empowering, and can create and design situations from a place of pure intention. So, yeah, please continue.
And so it talks about, the practice is about uncovering Dharma, which is the law of nature. When we begin to work with and understand these different sensations and feelings and vibrations, we can start to see that what are we rooted in? What are we craving? What do we have ignorance towards? What do we have aversions towards, which may be causing sensations in the body? So the practice really helped to understand that. And that can be craving for good things and bad things. It's still a craving. So now the practice itself. Do you want to say something?
Well, I hear you say good things and bad things. Where's that judgment coming from?
Ourselves. So we don't know what, like the natural thing for us to label is like, oh, this is good, this is bad, but what is, it just is. Because we don't know where it's coming from, and we don't know what it's going to do in the future. In this moment, it just happens to be. And that's like some of the things to understand as going through the practice of scanning. So we had our focus here, and once we began to learn Vipassana, day 4, it was then to bring this concentration and focus to the top of our head, observing the breath, now observing, feeling the sensations from the top of your head, through your forehead, through your face, all the way down to your feet. The first day was taking that awareness and scanning each area of the body on its own, not being attached to the way that it felt, because you don't know in that moment why it was doing what it was doing. So I mentioned, I would carry this head pain. When my scans at the beginning were at the top of my head, it was the absolute worst, because now my focus is around it. And she would suggest that you sit with pain areas for like a minute to just observe it and let it release, and then continue and forget about it, although it may still be there, and it was still there as I would scan down my body, going left shoulder down to left hands, right shoulder down to right hands, chest down towards my abs, back up to my back, down towards my pelvis. Then you do the back of your hips, the front of your hips, left leg, right leg, observing sensations.
Full body scan, and just bringing awareness, like significant durations of awareness to each part of your body, your skin. And how many times throughout this 10 days did you do this practice?
So from the moment we began learning Vipassana, as with the breath, it got more dynamic and advanced as the days went. but we did it from day 4 through day 10.
Wow.
It was most intense from day 4 up to the end of day 9, because day 10 was the loving kindness to help soften the blow, but we still did the meditation. So the first day was scanning down. And these scans took roughly 10 minutes. At first, I was doing about 6 body scans an hour. Day 2 of learning Vipassana, we then went down to our feet, went feet up to the head, and that would be considered one scan. The next day, we learned to go, if you were able to, you could use the other practices, but to add more dynamicness, scan down, and I would do both shoulders to both hands, both legs together, leaving the front of the trunk open, the back of the trunk to be its own.
So variations of this scan. This just strikes me as so valuable. And going back to, as we were talking about the sacred pause, the sacred gap, and understanding our body's signals in any given situation. For example, I find that when I'm around a trigger, so let's say it's aggressive behavior or impatience or harshness of any kind, I will first feel it in my body. I'll feel an adrenaline spike. I'll feel my heart start racing. I'll feel all the signs that I am tense and nervous. And for most of my life, those sensations in the body would trigger me into reacting from a victim mentality. You know, it's the fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And so having that awareness now, bringing the awareness to my body, I'm having an adrenaline spike, it's okay, I'm safe. You know, it really gives me that time to withdraw from whatever is creating that trigger. And because while it's a very valuable trigger to access fight or flight, typically in day-to-day situations, it's a generalized survival response that we no longer, or we don't need for 90-95% of our daily interactions. So for us to bring that awareness to the body and just acknowledge it, oh, this is a generalized stress response that comes from our ancient ancestors who needed this energy when leaving the cave and facing a saber-toothed tiger. When I'm just around someone who is speaking from a place of impatience or speaking in an aggressive manner, I'm not actually under threat. So before even allowing the trigger to generate a stress reaction from me, having that body scan can be so valuable in understanding even why it's a trigger and empowering me with choice of how I want to navigate that situation.
Yeah, and remaining objective, like this, some of the greatest understandings that I learned was how these sensations that I'm feeling are just the molecules of our body. So there were days where my whole body disintegrated.
Yes.
There were days where your eyes were shut for every meditation. So for 10 days, I spent more time with my eyes shut than my eyes actually open. And I remember being in these sits and my body's disintegrating because I just feel vibrating. I just feel that I'm vibrating. And I know that's the molecules moving. just as when there's a dense area or an area of pain, like I don't have a left leg that's operating effectively, but it's healing. And for the first few days, I could not feel anything. But then it slowly began to open up. But I couldn't attach anything to it, or nothing. It would have just remained in its story. If I added fuel, if I added wood to the fire of misery, it would have stayed in misery and wouldn't have had the chance to break up like ice that melts. So I began to understand and realize, okay, if I'm in these situations, I get scared. Okay, you can be scared. We're not saying you can't be scared, but can we understand what the scaredness is doing to our body? And can we be objective so we don't hold on to that energy of being scared? Because those like tight feelings, that's our molecules coming together. And if we stay with those tight feelings and we keep adding our story and anxieties to it after 8, 9, 10, 12 hours after the experience happened, that's going to be ingrained in us. And it's going to have to take tranquility and true equanimity to be able to work through that. So this practice was about getting to the most fine-tuned awareness of your mind, body, your soul, your environment, your feelings, your emotions, and letting them be the molecules that they are. Because if I'm scanning my cheek right here, yes, it's a part of the same skin. Yes, it's a part of the same structure of my body, but it's not the same as my left foot. It has different, it's the same molecules, but they're different and they undertake different stresses. But to remain objective and be with it and just allowing it, that was so difficult. I was holding conversations for 5 days, the same conversations, the same ones.
What do you mean by holding conversations?
So there was no speaking with anybody. And I remember on day 7, walking back to my room and thinking, I thought this was supposed to be a silent retreat. I haven't stopped talking since I got here. It hasn't been with anybody. I haven't said more than 20 words to a teacher. It's been all with myself.
Yeah, the imaginary conversations that we have with the imaginary people that that is just such a clear sign of attachment to something. Whether it's we want to explain ourselves, we want to explain our actions, but nobody's there. We're not actually talking to anyone. It reminds me of the Aubrey Marcus podcast when he spent 6 days in darkness, and the guest he had on that podcast said that they were talking about those imaginary conversations, and his guest was like, yeah, I close those like browsers, like they're like the tabs, the internet browsers we have up, and to just be able to close them. I know you mentioned feeding the fire. Would you like to speak a bit more about where that analogy came from?
Of course. So, after day 7, I'm having these thoughts of, I'm holding these same conversations with myself. I'm going through trauma that I've gone through, and I'm holding the conversation with my child self, being like, hey, everything's okay. Like, I am here, you are there, like, we're good, we're safe now, you made it. And then my child self is holding a conversation with whatever's going on, acting all scared and upset and being like, I can't believe this and this and this happened.
So what do you mean by with whatever's going on?
So with like the traumatic experience he was reliving.
So lifelong childhood experiences.
So I'm having these conversations with child to adult, adult to child, all in the past. I'm adding attachment to these conversations in the past. Now here I am in the present, being my current self in my mind, holding the conversations with the same person that did the thing to me so long ago. Be like, I am good. I can't believe this happened. I can't believe you did this to me and you didn't care about this. And how could you not listen and be there? And now I'm like stuck in that, holding a conversation that isn't even real, thinking about how they're going to respond and then carrying the weight of their emotional response. Where here I am just in myself trying to understand that it's all fake.
Well, so yeah, I mean, so what you were experiencing was acknowledgement of childhood neglect.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore witnessing it, especially because where you were, there was no way to distract yourself, no way to escape it. So the only way is through reliving it.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to face where you were neglected as a child and then have that conversation and that being able to face it internally without pointing fingers, without bringing it up, without blaming anyone for not being a good enough advocate. That's all really potent, powerful healing.
And it felt it. But then day one of having the conversation would turn into day two of having the same conversation, which then turned into day three of having another same conversation, day four of having the same conversation. And this happened with a number of different situations and a number of different people that I stayed attached to having these healing conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this realization in my room, like, what am I doing? Like, the practice is just to remain objective and not stay in this. Like, I had the moments of, I had these healthy healing conversations, but now I'm still stirring in it days after I had them. So that night I went to discourse and I'm sitting there and Goenka Ji starts talking about the same exact situation I had just been living. And he offers up this metaphor and he expresses, you know, when you're watching a fire, how do you keep the fire going? You put more wood into it. How do you get the fire to stop? You just observe it. Eventually it'll burn down and eventually it'll turn into coals and become nothing. So he starts talking about misery. Because when we have misery happens, when misery occurs, how do we handle it? Do we just observe it and watch as the source of fire, the misery goes away? Or do we begin to add wood, our own experience, our own thoughts, our own ideas to it, and keep that fire burning brighter and brighter? I'm sitting there like, oh my goodness, like the practice, wow, it makes so much sense. That analogy just hit it home for me. Like, I just need to stop adding this energy and thoughts to it once I've had the initial conversation, because it can't deny what occurred or how I feel, but I can deny how it impacts me here now.
Yeah, I mean, it can be really difficult because there's that value of justice and wanting justice for having been wronged and not having been seen or heard in a way that's nurturing and compassionate when we're young, and And we begin to see how all those patterns when we're young have led to us deviating from our authentic paths. And so we think that we're achieving justice by having those imaginary conversations, or even sometimes, like in my case, I've had some explosive in-person real life conversations saying, you didn't advocate for me in these situations, this one, this one, this one. It's really no one's business but our own. Everybody carries their own patterns into this life, and it really is just ghosts from the past. And it's those ghosts from the past and the attachment to them that results in depression and resentment and anger. And in the now, like as you say, we're here. We have the ability to access peace, so we can go ahead and let the fire burn out. And I find that to be such a peaceful metaphor, because it's also just giving space and accessing compassion for the other players in that situation, who did not know necessarily what they were doing. And even us, even when we're having conversations, when we're the actors in the situations from the past who hurt others, so many of us carry such burdens of guilt for ways we may have behaved in the past, and we can feed that guilt. And I imagine in this space like the Vipassana retreat, they all come up. And again, there's no way to escape. There's no social media, there's no TV, there's no booze, there's no way to escape anything. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to that, of zero distractions, zero stimuli outside, from the outside world. You chose a unique time in our country's history to go into this retreat. You went into it the day after the election, and so you didn't know who the president was going to be. You didn't know the results of the election. You had no access to social media, so you weren't a part of the chaos. And so I imagine that you have an interesting perspective into how things like social media and TV can populate our feedback loops, and then what happens when we have that much space, 10 days worth of space, from that overstimulation that our current technology perpetuates.
So, yeah, I guess so yesterday was the first day that I went out into public. And I almost cried because I wanted to go home. The matrix was moving way too quickly for me. Technology moves way too quickly for me. Everything is in feels, even like driving on the highway. Nothing feels natural. Nothing felt natural. And now, like, I had no technology, and I'm getting up earlier now. I feel myself wanting to go to sleep at night. I have new boundaries set for myself with how to use technology, especially when it comes to communication and talking with somebody one-on-one or within a group. I don't want to do it unless it's within a certain medium, like group conversations via email. Personal conversations via text message. And that's it.
So something that is striking me about this is, there's this sense of immediacy with messaging. And so as you're saying, group conversations via email, it's very different from a group conversation in text and or private messages or direct messages. And that what you just experienced strikes me as something that can result in the capacity for internal validation versus external validation. And the technology that we currently use has created kind of this epidemic of this need, the hunger for constant external validation, to the point where it's felt both ways. If we don't respond right away, we start worrying about what the other person's going to fill the gap in communication with. And so what you're talking about, setting those boundaries with technology, it can really influence how how that validation flows. So I was wondering if you could speak a bit about your capacity now for internal validation, maybe before entering Vipassana. Like, how much external validation do you think you needed, especially in communication? And I imagine anyone watching and anyone who uses social media regularly is aware of the dopamine hit that we get when people like our stuff, when we have new followers. And so that's all external validation. So yeah, any thoughts on that?
So prior to the retreat, I enjoyed having an Instagram story. I enjoyed sharing what I was reading or writing or studying, or staying in contact with those who are following me as like a community and keep it going. But I then realized, like, through my silence, like, what am I doing that for? Like, so I can go hit story, scroll up to see who's looking at it. So if I'm doing that, I'm not doing it for the pureness, because I can't just let it be and have it be this one and done experience that I hit send and there it is, which is cool because it's a tool. But to take it to the degree of, like, there were names like, oh, hey, this person saw it. I feel good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this person saw it. Then I get stressed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need that. Like, I now can feel those micro emotional responses, and it can be used as a tool, but within boundaries. Because something like your cell phone, it's an immediate drain the moment it's off charge. So any thought or anything you put into it, you're putting it into a draining source. But if I create this, okay, I'm going to do a social media post at between 9 a.m. and 9:15 a.m., 9:30 a.m., and that's it. I've used it as a tool, and I have the control over it.
So it sounds like this experience has really helped to clarify the intention with which you use technology, and that intention is enough.
Yes. Because there's so much going on personally, interpersonally. We all have our own lives. And it's easy to just start sharing all that with everybody, but not sharing it with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I just got this understanding minute 1, I got this understanding. Minute 2, I'm already sharing it with the world.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Where are you in this picture? Like, the
Yeah.
gap is here, but sometimes we just go and react and do it.
Yeah.
Where, like, I look at social media, Instagram, it's a pain in the butt to type a message on. So now it's going to be quick. These messages you really kind of need to think out, because if you hit send, it may mess up. Same thing with Messenger. Everything is so quick. It's immediate, but you don't think or try to, like, or at least I don't think. I'm not thinking, or I'm not trying to put any true intention in it. And if I'm trying to put true intention into it, I've now spent 40 minutes on my phone staring at a small little block trying to send this message.
Yeah.
Where if I went to an email, I'm more ready to send out long thoughts that are into that.
Yeah, really go in, dig deep. Yeah, and just that simple question, what is my intention in this? Something that you said that just hit is, who are we doing it for? Like something that we just learned 1 minute, the next minute we're already sharing. And while you've been away, to be a ally for you, I've limited my Instagram use to 11 minutes a day. And what I found was that something as simple as reading, something that I used to derive so much pleasure from for myself, I would realize I would read a page and then be like, this, I need to share this with the whole world, and take a photo and then go to post it on Instagram. And once my 11 minutes were up for the day, I could just sit back, chill, read a fucking book, and just read it and take it in. And that I was not giving myself the time and space to just do that. Like I was almost able to read in these like 5 minute or less spurts. I'd read a sentence and think, this is potent. The people need to hear this. The people need to see this. Or even my time in ceremony. I'm on the one hand, I have this beautiful perception of the world, and I do want to share that. But on the other, if I am not sitting with it and taking it in for myself, then the energy and potency with which I have to share with the world has been diluted. So that really hits. I'm just going to check. We have about 15 minutes left. So I'm just going to check on Facebook, see if anyone has any questions. So Kay asks, she said, your teacher transitioned through death in 2013. That being said, what was your relationship with your teacher like throughout your experience and today?
I feel very connected with him. The way he spoke to us, it was like he was your father, your grandfather, your brother, your mother, your sister. He spoke eternally. And I still hear him say anicca in my head, which means impermanence. Through everything, I feel him. Just as I've never met Ram Dass, and yet I feel him every day, and he passed away last year. There's something about this eternal light and knowledge that I just feel so much love for. And it just, because I've learned through so many different people, so many different ideologies, whether through books, whether through in physical person, and every single person has taught me something to some degree. But not everyone has led me the way like Goenka's grace has led me. Where he was tough on us, but at night during the discourse, he was so loving and gentle. So I had both. And to feel that consistently off of this man, and then knowing that he taught all these other spiritual leaders, there's this very home and comforting feeling.
It's amazing. Thank you for that question, Kay. It's just amazing how the essence of a being, the essence of a soul, can be conveyed through practice itself, and that we can feel that connection whenever we sit in that practice, that we learn from that person.
So there was this one on the last day we did meditation, and which is all loving kindness.
Well, explain that a bit deeper.
Yep. So we did a meditation, and it was, let me see if and it's all loving kindness, like sending loving kindness to yourself and everyone else. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be loving. May all beings be free. And it was to send love outwardly. So he taught us this practice, and on the last night for his last discourse, he then gave us his life story. And at the end, he goes, I'm not an egoic teacher, and I don't ask of anything from you guys, but there's one thing Goenka wants. There's one thing Goenka wants. He's like, you guys, you don't even pay for the teaching, because it was all donations. So everyone at the facility did it for free. The teachers didn't get paid, the assistants didn't get paid, servers didn't get paid, us students didn't pay, but we donated to the facility afterwards. So we didn't even do that. And he goes, all I want from each of you is, at the end of your Vipassana sits daily, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night, you do 15 minutes of meditation, the loving kindness meditation, and at the end, you send loving kindness to Goenka.
Wow. Wow, that is so beautiful. Just before this, I watched an interview between Sandra Ingerman and Brooke Medicine Eagle, and at the end, Sandra Ingerman brought us through this guided meditation that actually, Kay, if you're still watching, it was you. Like she was drumming and she had rattles, and I was just picturing Kay. I had my eyes closed and I was just picturing Kay, and just felt so connected. Which again, it's really these practices that just unify, and that soul level with soul family. And then at the end, I can't remember which women had to send love to the other woman, but I was just sitting there sending love to both of them, because I was just so grateful that these two now elders, they met years ago, and now are elders teaching these practices, and that just brings to mind the gratitude that I have. I want to send loving kindness to any young person watching and hearing the call, because it's all about embodiment. And as we embody these practices, these ancient practices that are for some reason called New Age, but as we embody them, we are conveying and carrying on the essence of the elders who came before us. And as you said, like, do your practice of Vipassana, carrying on the tradition of the Buddha from 2,500 years ago. And it really is at this unique time and space. These are really transformative healing practices. So, and they really do connect us within, which is actually just another question I have for you. How has your connection with self So your connection within and your connection with the external and the others around you shifted from this practice.
Tremendously. As mentioned yesterday, I went out into the real world, and for my body, it was way too fast for my body, and I kept like being off. I like forget something here, or I wouldn't put my mask on because I just completely forgot about what was going on. And then I'd interact with somebody and I'd find myself being extremely just slow and caring and listening and being with and sending love through my smile. I then was with somebody who was dumping their whole life on me. And I kept thinking to my mind, I tripped and my mind was like, don't you understand? I was just in 10 days of silence. Like, why don't you ask me if I can listen to this? Then I'd be like, objective, let the fire burn. And then I could see them putting their logs in their fire. And I could hold the compassion for the misery of the story that they were under and understand that they were just trying to be heard. But I had to work through anxiety and these feelings in my body to let it go. Rachel, you mentioned like you softened the blow for my return. So I was able to leave the retreat, and I was lucky to be able to go spend time with you because it felt like I landed on a cloud and I was able to float, and you knew where I was coming from. So I was able to witness how, because we did talk about what was going on in your life the day I returned. But it was in a way that there was a gap between every single statement being said. So I was able to handle that, and I was completely fine and able to work through that because I was very clear and you respected the clarity. So then living and being around people that aren't necessarily studying mindfulness and practicing mindfulness, I saw how much I had to protect my own gap.
So you didn't turn on your phone. Yeah, well, actually, how long after you exited the retreat did you give yourself to keep your phone off?
I gave myself 24 hours. So I left the retreat on Sunday morning, and I turned my phone on 24 hours after that, Monday morning, and I had thoughts about it. And then it always comes back to, you're a human, you have human responsibilities, and you can't be selfish in this time away where you've just been logged off for the last X amount of days. But I respected myself to give me the day to not be on it. So when I did turn on my phone, I looked at all these messages with clarity and spoke to each person with clarity, and nothing triggered. And I spoke with people who I had conversations with in my mind through the different traumas and suffering, and none of that was there.
Wow.
I was able to speak with clarity.
So the catalyst, the human catalyst for the trauma, those original wounds, the core wounds from childhood, you had those conversations in your mind, the imaginary conversations, and then after leaving, you could welcome those people back into your life with zero attachment to those conversations, to whatever the triggers were. That sounds infinitely valuable for any relationship.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to clear the past and really perceive our closest the people closest in our lives who have known us forever, to be able to perceive them through the lens of the now, the lens of compassion.
Yes, and I was holding conversations from when I was a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old child. Once I released those conversations in my mind, I relived my entire childhood up through high school, up through college, with positive memories.
Wow.
I broke through the negative covering and relived positive memories.
No
It was
wonder,
incredible.
no wonder you were told you would leave a master of yourself. That's it. That right there, self-mastery. Being able to focus on the positive in the past. Something that you mentioned earlier, you know, you really broke your body down to a molecular level, and being able to feel on that molecular level when we expand and when we contract. So something that causes contraction is fear, negativity. You know, sometimes there's a place for it, but when it comes to our relationships and, you know, what we really want out of our relationships, which I think for all of us, it really comes down to love. Love is the most expansive force, and pure unconditional love. And so to be able to return to those same people with that fresh perspective, that's just so valuable and so beautiful. And you know, it's like the victim is healed. The wounded healer is healed. So now it's just healer.
Yep. And I know, like, those thoughts may continue to bubble up, but the more I observe them, the more they're releasing. And another great anecdote that really helped me when it came to respecting my gap and taking on the anxieties and fear of others. So there was a man around the time of the Buddha that had a goal of killing 1,000 people. This man had so much anger and rage, he was going to kill 1,000 people. So this man has killed 999 people. He's looking for that 1,000th person. Because of the good karma this man has had in the past, he runs into Buddha. And the Buddha's about to be the 1,000th person he's going to kill. The man is running up to him in anger. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. And the Buddha's standing there, you know, with his smile. Be like, you know, what's going on? You know, he sees this man's in misery. He sees this man in suffering. He's like, oh, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. Okay. So the Buddha's standing there being like, you may want to kill me. And I get that. You may have all these miseries, and I understand. But then the Buddha, he's like, don't even try to, the man's like, don't even try to convince me. I'm not changing my mind. So he goes, okay, I won't. But the Buddha asks the man a question. When people go to your house, do they bring you a gift? The man's like, yes, they bring me a gift. And he's like, so person one comes with a gift, you accept it because you like it. Yes, I like it. Person two comes with a gift, you like it and you accept it. Yes, I like it. Person three comes with a gift that you don't like. What do you do? He's like, oh, the man rejects it. It's like, I'm going to reject this. So the Buddha looks at him, he goes, you're coming at me with all your anger, and I'm going to politely reject this anger and allow you to keep it with yourself. The man stopped right there, thought about what he said, and then began learning Vipassana.
Wow.
It caused enough dissonance, cognitive dissonance in his mind.
So then what was the result of him learning Vipassana?
he let go of all his anger and fear. Didn't
Stop
need to kill anybody.
murderous rampage.
Yep, he changed.
So that's beautiful. It just shows that, you know, anything really is possible. All of this discord that we experience, all the chaos we experience as a species, we as sovereign, autonomous beings have the ability, and we are entitled to say, no, thank you. I'm aware of all your anger. I'm aware of your chaos. No, thank you. As one of my former clients would say, she'd say, return to sender. You know, and something that's so amazing when we get to know ourselves really well is that it becomes really apparent when someone's projecting something onto us that does not belong to us. It did not originate from within us. And the projection is successful if it infiltrates our psyches and we own someone else's misery. And so just being able to take that sacred pause, say, that's yours. No, thank you. But you're welcome to sit in it and stew in it. I'm not going to join you there. You know, that has being able to maintain our sacred space and our vibrational fields. That's enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't have to change anyone. We don't have to convince anyone of anything, but just not allowing that chaos and anger and discord to infiltrate the vibrational fields. You and I sometimes refer to our feedback loops, our quantum feedback loops. We are entitled to maintain the purity of those, and just politely decline. And you know, everyone's on their own journeys, and they can do the work. And what we do when we maintain our high vibrational fields, molecular expansion, you know, energy, everything's energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be transmuted. So just as our energy, let's say we're walking around smiling, happy, all living the Buddha life, and someone comes at us with their misery and projects it onto us, creates fear in us, our energy might be transmuted into fear. However, if we're able to set those boundaries, not only do we maintain our fields of energy in that expanded place, there's also such great potential for that discord and chaotic energy to find balance, because we are the container. Mm-hmm. We are expanding the field, the collective field, by taking care of ourselves, by choosing love. And the more of us that choose love, the greater that container expands, and energy has nowhere else to go but to fill the container. So all those dense, contracted molecules that people possess, you know, and that our bodies, our body, mind, spirit are contracted, that energy has nowhere else to go but out. So we really, it just goes to show we really, you know, are in control of our vibrational field, mm-hmm. and the frequency with which our molecules vibrate. So it's our job, our responsibility to maintain the highest frequency. And I just have a couple more questions before I wrap up. One is, well, would you recommend this experience?
I would recommend it to anyone, really. It's available for all, and it's within us. But if it's something that you're interested in undertaking, I would begin to just cultivate some kind of sitting practice. You don't need to attach anything to it. but just get used to the idea of sitting and meditating. Like I've been practicing different modalities of meditation for a few years, and I struggled immensely. So, but you could just go into it and have the same exact type of struggle. It's not inclusive. But if you have something that you can't seem to work through in your life, something that is just continuously bothering you, continuously there, go into 10 days of silence. There are different types of these retreats. This Vipassana retreat was very boot camp like, but there's insight meditation in like Berry, Mass. They teach Vipassana, but it's more free flowing. It's not as rigid. But I would recommend a silent retreat to some degree.
So I think this might be kind of difficult for Westerners to grasp, because we are really programmed toward instant gratification and immediacy of healing. So we like psychedelics. We want something that's just going to be a quick fix. And I think there's this limiting belief, or this kind of illusion that those kind of psychedelics and ayahuasca can provide that quick fix. So you have had an authentic ayahuasca experience with a shaman in Peru, and you have also now had this silent retreat, 10-day silent retreat. How do the two compare?
Wow, that's great. They were both gauntlets. The ayahuasca retreat typically is a multiple day event. So I can speak to being a part of a 5-hour ceremony. And the places that I traveled during that ceremony, emotionally, thoughts and ideas, was very similar. I went to the same unresolved issues that I was dealing with. Whereas ayahuasca was more in my mind and not observing what my body was doing and just kind of letting the medicine do what it was supposed to be doing. And Vipassana was being aware of what's going on in your body and how the sensations cause different thoughts and different feelings. I would recommend going to Vipassana first, due to the fact that there is no external motivation. There is no medicine you're ingesting. You are eating vegan, vegetarian for 10 days. You're operating in purity of mind. You're operating in these different noble guidelines. Whereas in the ayahuasca, yet you're exploring your mind and your soul, but you can talk, you can move around, you can do these different things. But yeah. Wow. Similar but different.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So you just brought something else up. So now I have more questions. So, and then we can wrap up. But you mentioned the food and the purity of mind. what did you notice about the strict diet and your mind and the relationship between the two?
I was never hungry. Through the entire 10 days, I was not hungry. And I had no fog. Zero fog.
No brain fog.
No brain fog. There was no, like, we had tea every day. And the food that we had, there wasn't like added sugars. There was nothing processed. It was all created there. And I believe it was locally sourced foods also, because they believe in supporting the local economy where this meditation center is. I noticed, especially leaving, I have much more compassion for, like, over the last few years, I've teetered between vegan, vegetarian, still eating meat seldomly. But leaving, I find myself having much more compassion towards cows and pigs.
Wow.
Just so much more compassion and love for them. And I'm not 100% sure like where that's coming from. Like, I know you and I, we've watched videos and we've talked about this extensively, but I never, like, the thought didn't come, the voices didn't come, and like looking into the eyes of the pig and the cow weren't there. But for some reason it was there after this. So like I'm living towards that, and like now, like I went shopping, not buying any meat. I'm just living off of grains and seeds, nuts, fruits, veggies. And even though I still have this principle within me, which I'm going to be working through as I redefine my intake, but I believe that if food is made for me, it's made from the hands of God, even if it's something that is outside of how I'm truly like eating. But if it's made for me through the hands of God, I still feel that's in alignment with me. But I'm now readjusting that agreement to, include cow and include pig. It may take me time to get there, but I've already started the renegotiation. And it seems like that's in alignment with me.
So when you say include cow and include pig, you mean include advocacy for them in the renegotiation, like a voice for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, like a voice for them in how I consume, in the consumption of it, of their foods.
So that actually is aligned with a theme we circle back to pretty regularly, which is shifting from being unconscious consumers to being compassionate citizens. So that theme, that intention is such a potent part of the renegotiation process of how can I be a compassionate citizen while also, eating the foods that feel good for my body and my mind. Thank you. Just one last question. How, now that you have had this experience, how would you like to integrate?
Into life?
Your day-to-day. Yeah.
So I've already made commitments with myself to continue the meditation practice. I gained so much freedom, knowledge, and comfort from Goenka that I'm going to continue to do this practice. I have maintained doing it in the morning each day since I've left. And I find like this morning I wake up, and if I see that it's a little bit of light out, that means it's time for me to get up. Like I was up at, I think maybe 5:30 this morning because I could see a little bit of light out. So I want to maintain those practices moving forward. I'm going to maintain communication boundaries, knowing very well that the experience that I live is what's aiding these communications and aiding everything that's going on outside of me. So if I'm not truly experiencing myself, I'm not truly showing up for anyone effectively.
And that's a comment that Kay made on the Facebook Live thread. She said boundaries really are love. So,
yeah. So integrate with boundaries, trying to see, because I always had prior to the experience, I lived with one pointed thinking and lived with this focus on what I'm doing at that moment. So now I'm trying to integrate being focused, but objectively seeing where my body feels too. So I'm taking it to the next level.
So let's say the focus is washing a mug, and so prior to your single pointed focus would be I'm washing this mug, I'm washing this mug. And now it's going to also be on your body?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
I'm going to try to scan where my body is at that time to see if I can feel myself washing the mug.
Word.
Right. Like when I was driving can be very meditative for me. I can zone out, which some of my best thinking happens there. So it's like, that's also another thing. Like this Vipassana meditation, it teaches you awareness of your body. And that's that. You don't want to integrate other meditative practices. But if you do have something else where you like to journey, doing shamanistic journeying, know the boundary that I am going to journey now. I am going to expand my mind. So you don't mix up the two and begin to get frustrated if one is being impacted by the other.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. Very interesting.
Because like I do practice shamanism, but I find this Vipassana meditation is something that works for me, but they work in two different types of ways.
So again, it comes back to intention. Set the intention to do Vipassana or set the intention to do shamanic journeying. But you're saying don't combine the two or blur the lines.
That was the biggest thing. So as a meta teacher coming in, I had an interview with a Vipassana teacher in order to get into this course. And he was telling me to not bring any of my studies into this, to not bring any of the Hindu studies, to not bring any of the yogi studies, to not bring any of the Tao or the Zen meditation, because if you then try to learn Vipassana and then use a mantra, you're fixated on the mantra. You're saying this mantra and you're fixated on the mantra. You can't do a body scan and be fixated on a mantra at the same time.
Absolutely.
Or you can't be observing your breath while controlling your breath at the same time.
Can't be doing Wim Hof and Vipassana at the same time. Fascinating.
Do them separately, know the boundary, but don't mix the two in order to get the benefits. And you can look at that like for shamanistic journey. It's like, I am doing this. I don't want to mix all these other modalities into it.
So for example, with Wim Hof, I have a clear intention. I do Wim Hof for my immune system. With shamanic journeying, that's where I like to receive information from the elders and from nature. So I know my motivation for each of those practices. What would you say is the motivation, the intention for saying, now I'm going to sit with Vipassana?
to allow space for both the miseries of life and the joys of life. And I use those as broad terms. Allow that space for the miseries and joys of your life within your body to bubble up to the surface and to cultivate bodily awareness. So you can walk around day to day and live safely within natural law, within the sacredness of life. And then you with your body, and from there you've done your bodily checkup and update, and then move forward.
Well, this is so interesting. I feel like now we're at a point that I actually just want to like jump into this even deeper. But I know that speaking of boundaries, I want to respect your boundaries with technology. So maybe this is something we can circle back to is how to integrate this with all these different practices, because now I have just a million more questions. And I can't imagine that the questions will ever stop coming because we're just going deeper and deeper.
That's why I like the idea of, like, he says, commit an hour in the morning and an hour at night. And talks about, if you like to sleep, you may find that you want to sleep less. Because you're meditating for an hour before bed, then you're meditating right when you wake up for an hour, so your eyes are still shut. And by doing it in the morning, I feel it's really tuning yourself up and seeing where you're at as a human being for the day.
Yes.
Before, like, I struggled to start meditating. I've struggled with a morning meditation right when I wake up. But now, right when I wake up, I have the call, hey, just go and sit and see where you are today. And then you can forget about your practice and live normally.
I just love thinking about it as a scan. Start the day with the scan. Bring your awareness to self. Check in. I just love that. So yes, as we wrap up, first I want to thank you and I want to congratulate you. This is a huge achievement. 10-day silent retreat in the middle of the most chaos that I've ever known in my lifetime, and it's really such an accomplishment. So I want to congratulate you and thank you for reintegrating technology and joining me today so that we can share a bit of your experience and maybe inspire others to really check in, do a scan, maybe take breaks from social media, and learn the art of internal validation, learn the art of when we catch ourselves having those imaginary conversations that are just feeding the fire of misery, maybe just observe and let the fire go out. So many gems from this conversation, so thank you. And I'm wondering, please feel free to say no. However, I was wondering if we could close out, if you could guide us in a little meta, sending loving kindness.
Yeah, I can do that. Let me, let's see if I want to say it the right way. So let me see if I can pull that up, because I haven't fully integrated the verbiage.
I'll just check Facebook one more time. Cool.
I thought I had it. Yeah, thank you so much for holding the space for this. And I really appreciate you like feeling inspired to host and ask the questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we're a team, this Shamanism for the People team that we're just getting going. And I think this was just such a wonderful opportunity for the people to get to know one of the founders. We're both founders along with Sid and Dustin and Shanti and Jen and Kay, and we all have our respective journeys to how we got here, and this is something different. Many of us have done meditations, have done yoga, have done Kape, different medicines, but I think you're the only one of this group who has completed a Vipassana experience. So it's really inspiring, and I just have nothing but admiration and respect for you.
So I'm ready to lead this.
All right.
Let's just begin by sitting. And just observe the breath. It could be shallow, could be deep. But just observe it as it is. Noticing any thoughts that come up, any sensations, and just observe them and let them go. Just silencing and breathing. If you notice any pains in the body, any joys in the body, just observe. Know that it's constantly changing, just as our breath flows. Now we're going to repeat silently the following phrases. And you could bring anyone up to your mind that needs this love. Could be yourself, partner, family member, community, society, really anybody, anything. And repeat, may you live with ease. May you be happy. May you be free from pain. May you live with ease. May you be happy. May you be free from pain. May you live with ease. May you be happy. May you be free from pain. And know that whatever you're imagining, you are both alike and have the same intentions for one another. Repeating the following phrase: just as I wish to, may you be safe, may you be healthy, and may you live with ease and happiness. May you be safe, may you be healthy, may you live with ease and happiness. May you be safe, may you be healthy, may you live with ease and happiness. May your life be filled with happiness, health, and well-being. May your life be filled with happiness, health, and well-being. May your life be filled with happiness, health, and well-being. May you also live with ease and happiness. May you also live with ease and happiness. May you also live with ease and happiness. And for this last, we're going to expand our awareness towards the whole globe. Imagine it's in front of you like a little ball. We're going to send warm wishes to all living beings on the globe who, like you, want to be happy. May you live with ease, happiness, and good health. May you live with ease, happiness, and good health. May you live with ease, happiness, and good health. Now take a deep breath in and breathe out. One more deep breath in and let it go. When you're ready, you can open your eyes, but notice the state of mind you may be in right now. And see how we can carry this throughout our days and throughout our lives.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
And thanks for having me.
All right, well, just before we wrap up, I feel super high on that meditation. Yeah, before we wrap up, so are we returning to Open House Tuesdays? Cool.
But I don't know about next week because of the holiday week. So we'll probably do it.
Okay, so play it by ear.
Play it by ear, but I just don't know because it's like through my own experience, the week of Thanksgiving call has always been different, but we'll see. Probably.
So, yeah, in general, anyone who's viewing this can find us On Monday, morning meditations with Dustin. Tuesday, open house with Chris. We will begin to incorporate Wellness Wednesdays, and we have a variety of options for that. We will be returning to Thursday plant medicine ceremonies with myself. Friday is Dreamer Dens with Shanti. And Sid is hosting book club on Sundays. So yeah, and we'll ride that out for the rest of the year and into the new year, and just continue maintaining this connection and community. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Christopher. And yeah, looking forward to all future discussions. And if anyone has any further questions about Vipassana, feel free to post them. And I'm sharing this live in Empath Warrior Training, so feel free to post them there. And yeah.
Thanks everyone for listening and watching. I really appreciate it. It's fun being able to share just practice and experience with others. Hopefully you can find your own way.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, just sharing different modalities and different practices, and yeah, really slowing down. I feel very slowed down right now.
Nice.
All right, thank you everyone. I'm gonna just stop the Facebook share, and yeah, thank you everyone for joining.